I've been trying the world's most powerful brain peptides to see if I can manually raise my IQ, because our entire lives we've thought that intelligence is permanent. You're either born smart or born dumb. Well, not only have I seen for myself, but the elites of the world are doing what's called IQmaxxing, where they're using peptides to increase their cognitive output. In this video, we're going to go over everything that these guys have done, what I've seen for myself, and how you can use these for yourself. Before we get into this video, it's important to note that these are mind-altering compounds, and if you're going to do any of these treatments, make sure you're only doing so under direct medical supervision. I'm not a doctor. This shouldn't be misconstrued with medical advice, but without any further ado, let's get into what the world's most powerful people are using to make their brains work better than yours. To start, it's important to note that the reason anybody even needs these peptides today is because of our environmental factors. They've rotted our brains so far to the point where we can't even function normally that we have to enhance ourselves chemically. Now, most of these peptides were originally made in Russia for the Soviet army to train somewhat of super soldiers, if you will. But now with all of the social media on our phones, the lack of any effort or thought you have to put into anything because of AI, our brains have effectively become mush. But this is what people are using to not only get themselves back to baseline, but also operate on the highest frequency without having to input a chip in your brain like Elon Musk wants to do. Think of your brain as a fully functioning car. Every bit and every piece is designed to make one function happen, which is drive the car. There's little things like transmission, brakes, oil, windshield wiper fluid, glass on the windshield. While most of the things in the car aren't designed to make it go forward, it makes sure that the car can run and operate effectively. That's how we have to think about our brains, and when it comes to any level of optimization within the brain, it's not always just about how do we keep it firing and running and running and running. It's how do we optimize everything around it to have the best driving experience. For example, if we've got ourselves a golf cart, putting a Formula One race car engine in that golf cart is not going to be optimal. If your brain is so far rotted from the outside, from dopamine, serotonin, social media, drugs, alcohol, putting a high-speed, ultra-powered peptide behind that brain is not just going to solve all of its problems. It's not the optimal driving experience. It's really important to cover that before we start getting into the peptides. Which brings me to the first thing on this list, and although it's not technically a peptide, I believe it should be at the baseline of every single cognitive treatment that exists, and that is NAD+. Back to the car example, NAD+ is like having a charged battery. It doesn't matter what kind of engine or what kind of exhaust you've got. If you don't have a charged battery, that car is not turning on, and that is exactly what NAD+ does for the body. NAD+ is the coenzyme found in all living cells in the mitochondria, which, as we know, is the powerhouse of the cell, which is going to create our ATP production, which is all of our cellular energy. In order for our cells to work together, they need ATP production. A secondary measure of NAD that I find really useful is its ability to strengthen and retain DNA strands. As we're getting older, or as we're using our brain, feeling stressed, going to work, all of that puts stress on the DNA. NAD+ gives that DNA the ability to last longer, and it will also have a bit of an anti-aging effect, not only in the skin, in the mind, in every cellular function in the body. Without NAD+, even the strongest cognitive peptides on the planet start to have diminishing returns because they only last for so long now that the cells don't have enough energy to communicate. If you are someone who's working a job, anyone who's got any sort of stress, anyone who needs to have energy throughout their day, NAD+, in my opinion, is a necessity. I would rank this a full 10 out of 10 when it comes to any sort of cognitive stack. Next, sticking with the car example, is the master mechanic, Cerebrolysin. This peptide is super interesting, and if you've seen people even like Clavicular talk about his use with it, it's really good for people who have destroyed their brains, whether that has been from drugs, from alcohol, whatever the cause. Cerebrolysin is like the mechanic that can go into the car and rebuild the damaged products. It stimulates BDNF and GDNF, which are your nootropic factors. It's really effective at stopping the cells from damaging themselves. A lot of cells end up destroying themselves in the process, usually due to inflammation. The cells start attacking each other or themselves. What Cerebrolysin's role is to reduce that inflammation so the cells are not destroying themselves and actually bettering and healing themselves so that your brain's output stays at the optimal level. This drug is specifically helpful for people who were on Adderall for a long time and have completely rotted their brain's dopamine receptors, as well as their ability to think cognitively without ADHD stimulants. Cerebrolysin is studied for being the best rebuilding mechanism for those who have rotted their brains on drugs like Adderall, or people who have done too much Molly and destroyed their serotonin receptors. This is where Cerebrolysin shines. It's also showing to be particularly effective for people who suffer from CTE, specifically athletes. A lot of times what happens is their brains have been struck by so much blunt trauma that the cells are literally dying from the inside. Cerebrolysin can be really effective, especially when working with athletes with CTE. I would give Cerebrolysin a 9 out of 10, the only drawback being that you can do a little bit too much of it. And a lot of times with nootropic peptides, everybody wants to overdo because they think more is more. That is not the case with this one, and you can also end up doing a little bit of damage if you go over the deep end. Next on the list is Dihexa. This one was actually made right here in the United States, and it was studied for its ability to work on Alzheimer's patients. It is the strongest cognitive enhancement tool on the marketplace today. It is the only oral pill that effectively crosses the blood-brain barrier, which makes it wildly more effective than a lot of the other orals on the marketplace. This one boosts your HGF, which boosts your hepatocyte growth factor, also very integral for cognitive function and output. It binds to the receptors in your brain with a grip that is 7 million times stronger than your brain's natural signals. This process is one of the only effective methods of causing synaptogenesis, which is the physical creation of creating new bridges between brain cells. As long as we're sticking to our car example, think of Dihexa like the nuts and bolts and screws that hold everything together and ensure that those connections are made. That is Dihexa, effectively a memory saver. So all the new connections that get made in the brain are stored, safe, and your brain can actually recall them as needed, which is why it was developed for Alzheimer's patients. Really effective for those who suffer from short-term memory loss. I know I have felt this at times. I've used Dihexa before. It's an incredible compound. Your ability to recite and recall information is second to none. A group of people I see really benefiting from this would be students. They could ditch the Adderall and all the study drugs while they try to stay focused, or instead they could just use Dihexa to increase the rate at which they memorize. Next on the list, I like to call the Russian twins, Semax and Selank. In our car analogy, this is like adding a super-powered engine and making sure it's got coolant. Semax is going to make your brain operate at a higher frequency. It is going to make it compute and process information faster, better, and more effectively. This one forces the brain to release not only BDNF, but NGF as well, modulating your genes related to the immune system as well as blood flow to the brain. Semax offers this clean wakefulness that feels like Adderall without the cracked out feeling, that lasered in focus, that extreme mental clarity. That's what Semax users report the most. If nothing else, it gives you an ability to drive the car faster. This is definitely best suited for the executive, someone who really needs to use their brain during their job, where their cognitive output and their ability to process information quickly, effectively, and make decisions, that is who Semax benefits the most. It is definitely the cognitive peptide that I use the most because I notice the most impact when I use Semax. Now, if you're going to keep your engine running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you need to make sure that you're not overheating it, and that is exactly where Selank comes in. These two are almost always used together whenever I'm making protocols for high-level business people or celebrities or actors, whoever, someone who needs to be at the optimal level of efficiency. I always make sure they're doing Semax and Selank together. Semax's job is to rev that brain up, keep it go, 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 go. Selank is used at nighttime to make sure your brain has the optimal rest so that it can support the next day of rapid motion. I've often made the comparison to an old TV with a ton of static, and Selank is just like muting the static and keeping all the volume that you want. Everything just sounds serene. It does this by boosting your GABA, which will balance your dopamine, killing any sort of anxiety or overthinking going on in the brain. This has been a life-changing compound for me. For someone who works 12, 14 hours a day, most days like I do, Selank has been something that has made it really easy for when it's time to power down, to stay powered down. This has been the biggest thing I've struggled with for a long time, is I wake up in the middle of the night, and when I have an idea, I need to act on it right then and there. Selank makes sure that I'm not waking up in the middle of the night, that I'm not overthinking. And when it comes time to work, I can focus and be on my game because I didn't spend all night up restlessness thinking about everything I had to do today. These two are phenomenal. I would rank Semax an 8 out of 10, and I would rank Selank a 9 out of 10. The only reason I have Semax a little bit lower is it does have some diminishing returns, and you can only do it for really about a month at a time max. Selank is something you can do a little bit longer, but not by much. But the negatives associated with staying on Semax too long are a lot greater than the negatives on staying Selank for too long. So just like any of these peptides, there is a strict protocol that you need to stick to. Do not take these blindly and just think, oh, okay, I'm going to make myself smarter. You are literally altering your brain's chemistry. You have to do this under direct supervision of someone who knows what they're doing, whether that is me, whether that is a doctor, whether that is anybody who can actually guide you in this process. Because if you're just ordering this stuff off a random research site and just start injecting away, you are going to destroy your brain. Please do this with caution. Now, my favorite part as a scientist, pair them all together. I'm going to go over a couple different scenarios and what I think the best combos would be for each person. The people this stuff would impact the most, still hands down, I think is going to be recovering drug addicts, people that have fried their brains from a little too much fun and partying. The best combo I see right now, NAD plus at the base with Cerebrolysin to rebuild. Adding these two in are going to relay a new foundation for you to build your bigger house on, but it will also give you the ability to not be burnt out in the rehabilitation process. Something else I would even recommend adding in this process is about 20 grams of creatine. Now, that might sound like a lot. We only need about 5 grams for it to soak up into our muscle. But we are seeing a ton of research start to come out about high-dose creatine and how it affects your neurocognitive abilities. I believe it is also something that is going to be pivotal in any sort of brain rehabilitation process. I would add 20 grams of creatine in at least for a couple weeks and then taper that down until you're at a comfortable level. Next is the CEO stack, someone who needs to get into flow state. Your decisions impact a lot of people. I am recommending the best one I've done for myself, NAD plus at the core, Semax Selank, which is going to keep you wired but focused, and then incorporating things like alpha GPC, uridine, as well as lion's mane mushroom have made it really effective at keeping the new pathways the peptides have made, keeping those open and making sure the neurons are firing effectively in them. It has made overall cognitive output and the ability to think quickly and effectively a breeze in comparison to doing it without. Look, we're a part of the dumbest generation that has existed in the last 100 years, and that is scientifically accurate. If you look at the rate of decrease of IQ over the last couple generations, we haven't seen anything like this since before the 50s. It's actually insane, and it is 100% in direct correlation to the garbage that is in our food, the chemicals that are sprayed on it, everything that's in our water, and all of the mind-numbing attacks that are on all of our social medias all day. Without a doubt, if you do not make a change to the chemistry of your brain, you are going to fall victim to this. It is almost impossible to avoid things like ADHD or short attention spans or bad memories or anything of the sort because we are physically attacked in our brains every single day. And that's just from what we know right now. 10 years from now, we're going to identify even more about how the different radioactive waves going through our brain are altering our chemistry. Everything we do in modern society is designed to make us dumber, sicker, and weaker. And unless you're doing something to intervene, you are going to end up just that, dumb, sick, and weak. So that is everything that we cover on this channel. And it is exactly why I do this, because I believe medicine should be practiced in the sense of there are ways to optimize yourself. You don't just have to go to somebody when you're sick and dying. You should be able to go to somebody to get better than you are today. And that is everything I stand for. It's what I'm going to continue to do on this page. If you believe in this type of medicine, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment in the comment section below of what you want to see next, turn on those post notifications, and I will see you in the next one.